You know how it goes, scrolling, maybe late at night, and then bam, a song just stops you.
Yeah, it happens sometimes.
For you, maybe that song was Alkebulan by this artist, Resurrection.
Spelled Resurre, then 3 X's, Tion.
Right, and pronounced resurrection.
Exactly. And those moments, when music just grabs you, that's often where really interesting stuff starts. Alkebulan definitely did that for us.
It really did. So for this deep dive, we want to really get into Alkebulan, try and understand the lyrics, what Resurrection, who's amazingly a 16-year-old from Cedar Rapids, Iowa, what he's trying to say.
And not just the song, but his whole perspective on things, the country, current events. There's this buzz around him, this whole deepest thinker idea.
Yeah, and the debate that comes with it, prophet or something else. We'll touch on that.
It's pretty compelling. He's been making music since 2021, so since he was, 13?
10th grader now? And his lyrics, they don't hold back. Global injustice, societal illusions. He tackles big themes.
And he's got stuff up on Spotify, so people are definitely listening.
Okay, so to give everyone a real sense of it, let's just play the very beginning of Alkebulan.
Good idea.
And you see the mothers, and you see the children, and you see the boys at war, and you see the men. Do you hear the cries? See the pain in their eyes? Still we slaughtered them like lambs. No mercy as they beg for
Wow, okay, those first lines. Can you see the mothers? Can you see the children? Can you see the boys at war? Can you see the men?
Do you hear the cries? See the pain in their eyes? Still we slaughter them like lambs. No mercy as they beg for their lives. It just hits you immediately.
That raw suffering, right. What's your first take on that opening imagery?
Well, like you said, it's the sheer scope. It's not, it doesn't feel localized. It's mothers, children, men, boys at war. Like a snapshot of global pain.
And that phrase, slaughter them like lambs.
Yeah, that's incredibly strong. Innocence, vulnerability, destroyed so brutally. It suggests this huge power imbalance in whatever conflicts he's seeing.
Definitely sets a stark tone. But then he shifts, doesn't he? They try to keep you silent so you can never speak.
You must open your eyes, O child. You must wake.
What do you make of that turn? It feels like he's talking right to the listener.
It really does. It's like an urgent plea. Wake up. And it's vague, but it feels systemic, like forces trying to keep people passive or uninformed.
The idea of suppression.
Exactly. And coming from someone so young that, oh, child, you must wake. It has this real weight to it.
Then he gets into this historical view. They have killed all our prophets. They have used us and made a prophet.
The blood continues to pour. We're the losing, the meek, the poor. Like it rained, it only just pours, can never find a pause.
What does that tell you about his worldview? Seems pretty bleak.
It suggests this long, long cycle of exploitation. Killing prophets, silencing truth tellers, using people for profit. And the imagery, the blood pouring like rain, it feels relentless, like this suffering just doesn't stop for the people he calls the losing, the meek, the poor.
Like history just keeps repeating the same awful patterns.
Kind of feels that way in his lyrics, yeah.
And then he hits on division. They have broken us apart. They have cultivated hate. They have taught us to judge our kin by the color of our skin.
Oof, that's direct.
Very. What's the core message there for you?
That these divisions, especially racial ones, aren't just there. They're made. Cultivated hate, taught us to judge. It implies it's learned, imposed, maybe to keep people fractured, to maintain certain structures.
Yeah, breaking that solidarity. And he repeats these verses, which really hammers home that cyclical feeling you mentioned. Like, are you seeing this pattern yet?
Right.
And then there's that line, they don't want me to continue the show, but I must let the people know. What does that add?
It adds this element of personal risk, or at least opposition. Who are they? What's the show? His music, his message. It suggests he feels he's pushing against something, some force that prefers silence.
That's another layer of urgency, definitely. So these themes in the song, they clearly don't come out of nowhere. We looked at some of his other stuff, right? Like that document, America by Resurrection.
Yeah, we did. And, wow, it's intense.
What's the main thrust of it?
Essentially, his argument is that America, as a nation, is founded on, well, deception, genocide. He's very explicit about the near eradication of indigenous peoples and ongoing exploitation, and that much of its success is built on illusions. It's a really sharp critique.
And you can totally see the lines connecting back to Alkebulan, like that slaughter them like lambs line.
Directly echoes his writing about the genocide of Native Americans. It's the same kind of visceral language.
And the excesses useless and made a profit part.
That links straight to his points about slavery being foundational to the economy and how he sees exploitation continuing today. He mentions things like the prison system, citing the 13th Amendment loophole about slavery as punishment for a crime.
Right. And the call to open your eyes in the song.
Fits perfectly with his critique of the illusion of freedom. He talks about marketing, data mining, economic pressures, things that make people feel free while actually being, in his view, controlled or manipulated.
And the song's lines about cultivated hate
mirror his analysis of systemic racism in the document. He points to things like redlining, disparities in schools, the justice system, seeing them as deliberate ways to keep racial divisions going.
He even has this other note just called Resurrexation Thoughts, where he calls the U.S. political system a two-party system, but it's all fascist state.
Whoa. Yeah.
Yeah. So thinking about that, the line in the song, "They don't want me to continue the show," maybe that's his commentary on a political system he sees as fundamentally oppressive. Like, it doesn't matter which party, the system itself resists dissent.
That definitely puts a different spin on it. If he sees the whole structure that way, then any pushback he feels is just the system doing what it does. That's a heavy perspective.
It really is. And we have to keep reminding ourselves, this is a 16-year-old in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, thinking about how these huge global issues, these national narratives, filter down to someone in that specific place and time.
That's such a key point. Cedar Rapids isn't the center of global power, but kids today are hyper-connected. They see everything online.
Plus their own experiences. School, for instance, he calls it a scam in his writing, criticizes standardized tests replacing critical thought.
Right, and worries about the economy, maybe feeling like there's no clear path forward, no upward mobility, and just being bombarded with information, often contradictory. You can see how that could fuel a really critical, maybe even disillusioned viewpoint.
Which brings us right back to that core question people seem to be asking about him. Is he a lunatic, just way out there? Or is he a prophet, seeing things others miss or ignore?
Yeah, that tension is real. Because his writings, like in America by Resurrexation, they are stark.
Extremely. He flat out connects the country's origins to native genocide and slavery.
And slams current issues, systemic racism, education problems, healthcare being treated like a product.
And his view on America's global role, global terror, mentioning coups, drone warfare, that's provocative stuff.
Very. And he points to figures like Donald Trump as symbols of what he sees as a broken, racially charged system. He argues that real choice in democracy is maybe just an illusion, that the system isn't designed for everyone to win. He actually says, you were never meant to win here.
These are incredibly strong claims. You can see why some people might just dismiss it, right? Call it cynical, too simplistic, maybe?
Absolutely. It's easy to react that way. But then you think about what a prophet traditionally does, speaks uncomfortable truths, points out the deep flaws everyone else is ignoring or denying.
So, is it the raw, unfiltered processing of a very bright young person overwhelmed by the world's problems? Or is it something deeper, a kind of insight, maybe even prescient, into power and injustice that perhaps adults get desensitized to?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And it's why his work grabs you.
Now, thinking about these critiques he makes, power structures, potential oppression, it's interesting to place them alongside other ideas about where the country is headed, like Project 2025.
Right, that blueprint for governance coming from conservative groups. It lays out some very specific policy goals.
Things like major changes to immigration, aiming for self-deportation, big shifts in higher education accreditation, different approaches to climate policy, cutting NOAA's budget.
So when you hear Resurrection's concerns about systemic power, marginalization, you might start wondering, how do these kinds of detailed policy proposals fit in? Do they address his concerns, ignore them, maybe even exacerbate them, in his view? We're not taking sides here.
You're just presenting the different perspectives. It makes you think.
Exactly. And then there's work like the book The American Illusion. It also offers a pretty critical take on American society, empire, deception, inequality, similar themes to Resurrection's writings.
Yeah, the parallels are interesting. The American Illusion talks about America as a kind of business model, the role of drug money, war profits, It even questions leadership figures, mentioning Trump specifically, much like Resurrect Section does.
It does. And it touches on education as potentially indoctrination, the idea of minority suppression being built into policy.
It even points to the huge network of U.S. military bases globally, Pine Gap, Ramstein, Diego Garcia, all these places as tools of control.
Which resonates with Resurrect Exogen's focus on global power dynamics and intervention. Both sources seem to be hitting on this idea of surveillance capitalism too, media manipulation.
It really highlights that shared critique, doesn't it? This feeling of a gap between the American ideal and the reality, the sense that maybe it is an illusion for many.
Yeah, that core idea comes through strongly in both.
So, wrapping up this deep dive on Resurrect Exony, Alkebulan, and his wider thoughts, we really come back to the listener. What hits home for you in all this?
Yeah, what resonates? His lyrics, his ideas, they're challenging for sure.
Do you just hear a young guy with strong, maybe extreme opinion?
Or do you hear something else? Maybe a kind of uncomfortable insight into how things work, into injustices we often overlook? A voice challenging the way things are?
It might be worth listening to Alkebulan again after this conversation. See if it sounds different.
And like we said, he's got more music on Spotify if you want to explore his thinking further.
And we'll leave you with this final thought to maybe mull over. If we take these critiques seriously, the ones from Resurrect Sexation or sources like The American Illusion, what's our role, our individual role in examining these potential illusions?
What does it really mean to wake up, like the song urges? And if we do wake up, then what? What might that look like in action?
Something to think about. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.